Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening up in the stars above for this weekend, Super Bowl weekend, interestingly enough, for those of you who care. I don't really care about it this time, except for the fact that they have some funny commercials that I sometimes like to watch. But it is the weekend where some things really begin to change. And it begins today with the North Node, your destiny, right? The collective destiny coming into a conjunction, which means a blending of energies with the planet Neptune. And while, this is something that does, it's not like this happens only once every 800 years or something like that, but it is a pretty interesting thing to have happening right now as both the node just moved into the sign of Pisces, having come through the sign of Aries, the North Node, and Neptune is finishing up in Pisces and getting ready to move into the sign of Aries. So they're like little ships crossing each other in the night. And there is something really interesting to be gleaned about what it is that these archetypal energies are bringing to us at this point in time. And I was lying awake in bed this morning for some reason. I was awake at, I don't know, 5:30. Who knows what time it was. And I had this mad thought that the nodes, because they move backwards, right? They move clockwise through a chart where all the planetary energy, unless it's a planet in retrograde, moves counterclockwise through the chart, right? Counterclockwise. And so the nodes are always backing into a sign, right? They start at the 29th degree and then move down to zero and then move into the new sign at 29 degrees, count down to zero, where all the other planetary energies move into zero and up to 29 and then into zero. So I had this thought about the node having just completed its transit through the sign of Aries, planting a seed, if you will, into Neptune, the seeds of the experience gained, the collective destiny that has been set up for Neptune's transit through Aries beginning March 30th. And it was such a powerful thought that I started, going back and doing some research on other times and other ways in which this energy has been prominent in our kind of reality, and what kind of changes were wrought at that time, and what kind of things can we expect, right? So we'll take a look at that today as well. We're also going to be looking at the energy of the human design gates that this will be taking place at, which is the gate 36. And then I looked ahead and I went, the North Node is also going to conjunct Saturn, who's also in Pisces right now. And when will that happen? So I looked ahead. That happens in April 21st to be exact. And it is also going to be at the gate 36. So the gate 36 is something I think is worth looking at, taking our time to look through and seeing, what is it that we are learning about ourselves and what are the collective demands, as it were, in order for us to evolve, and not just evolve, but to evolve more consciously. So we're going to look at that today as well. And it's a deep study. It'll probably take us the entire hour this morning to work through that. But I also want to start this morning with the new week in human design. So from February 7th through 12th, we have the sun in the gate 49 and the earth in the gate 4. So the theme, interesting because it's going along with other things we're going to talk about today, is about catalyzing a personal revolution in your own life, right? A personal revolution, whatever that looks like. It's going to be different for everyone, especially because some people are going to have the 49 and or the 4 defined. Some will have not either of those gates defined. Some will have the 49 rather than the 4. And now everybody is going to have the 49 and the 4, at least for the next 5 days. So what does that mean? Well, there are moments in life when change is just not an option, it's a necessity. And this week's energetic theme of the 49, called the Gate of Revolution, and Gate 4, called the Gate of Possibility, ignites transformation, but not necessarily outside of you, but from inside of you. And you do this by embracing your role as a catalyst for change in your own life, but in your family or in your community, in your group, in your work. Um, but staying open to new possibilities of what that looks like or what that feels like over the course of time. So the sun is the one at the gate 49. It is called in quantum human design the catalyst. In traditional human design, it is called the gate of revolution. So it's a fire starter. This is fire starter energy, right? The energetic force behind the sun is about deep, meaningful transformation as an ignition, right? It's an ignition point. And it holds the power to revolt against outdated systems and beliefs and relationships that no longer serve your highest good. Now, we've been seeing something like this in the outer world already. And now, when the sun shines its light here, it asks you, what are you ready to break free from? For you personally, what are you ready to break free from? Maybe where have you outgrown old structures and forms or habits and relationships that you need to move away from? And another interesting question, and I think this is a very Black Moon Lilith kind of question for everyone, is are you waiting for permission to change, or will you claim your own revolution? Because it's kind of up to you, right? This energy is also about emotional clarity. The gate 49 is sitting on the emotional solar plexus, and it is awaiting the emotional oomph for change, right? The emotional alignment that is going to propel you or push you in the new direction. However, again, it's not coming from outside of you, although situations outside of you may be prompting the need for you to do this personal revolution. So, revolution, by the way, doesn't have to be loud and destructive. It could be quiet. It could be resolutely deciding that you've got to move or that you can no longer accept anything less than what you desire. Right? So it doesn't have to be you screaming out on the streets, holding signs, picketing. I mean, it can certainly be that, but it doesn't have to be, right? It could be much quieter. It could be you dealing with an impulse that's coming up from within you that is coming from a deeper inner truth that you want to express in your outer world in a new way. Now, the earth is in the gate 4. The gate 4 is called the gate of possibility. In traditional human design, I think it was called rationality or formulating, something like that. It had a completely different sort of feel to it, which is why Karen went very carefully through all the words and updated them when she did, because they were kind of older terms. So when we're looking at the gate 4 now, we're looking at this as the desire for transformation in the gate 49, meeting up with the earth at gate 4, offering the grounding through curiosity and exploration, right? Possibility thinking. And gate 4 brings the energy of questioning. The gate 4 sits on the Ajna, so it's connected to the mind. And it is questioning and seeking solutions to the problems that you are currently experiencing or the challenges that you have. And it reminds us that every revolution begins with the belief that a new way is possible. If you don't believe it's possible, there's no revolution, right? So you have to believe. So what if is a good question, right? If you could begin with what if. So instead of being overwhelmed by change, use what if? What if I decided to do this way? What if this could be the way that it is? Instead of fearing uncertainty, explore what new pathways could emerge. What new things could be revealed to us? And instead of resisting transformation, embrace the what do I need to learn to or unlearn to move forward? Because sometimes it's an unlearning process as well as a learning process. So the gate 4 reminds us that the revolution is not just about destruction. It's about creating something better from what is, maybe to replace it in some way or elevate it or raise its consciousness in some way. So this week from the 7th through the 12th, will hold the energy of trusting your instincts while staying open to innovative solutions and unexpected opportunities that can come your way, right? We don't know. That's kind of the what if, right? We don't know. So the gate 49 igniting the need for change and transformation and the earth grounding you in possibility, you're being called to step into your personal power and to redefine or transform your reality. Only you can do that. Right? You can't expect that from outside of you. It has to come from inside. So if you've been hesitating on a big life change, this is the time to take action. Remember at the beginning of the year, the calendar year, I said it isn't an authentic new year, right? There's nothing new there, right? This is you're still completing energy. The calendar may say January 1, but it's an arbitrary date. And what we are really in at that point in time is this dream time, this time of inner consideration and decision making, potentially in terms of strategy and what we may want to do as the year moves forward. But the energy for doing that isn't there yet until this week, right? This last week, we learned about the narrative, rewriting the story, and what do you have to rewrite in first? What do you have to change in the way you think or in the way you speak to yourself or others even, um, before you can make these big changes. And then this week, the revolution comes, right? So it is always going to be this week-ish, 7th through 12th-ish of February, that is where we really begin to see the feat of action begin to take place, right? To begin to move us forward. So if you've been feeling stuck in old patterns, this is your moment to break free. If you've been craving a new path, then this is your invitation to explore it more fully. See what's possible. Ask that question, what's possible? And a personal revolution doesn't happen all in one day. It just doesn't happen that way. It unfolds through small, courageous steps toward change. This week, challenge yourself to let go of those outdated beliefs and embrace a new perspective and take bold actions toward your desired life. You are the catalyst, and the possibilities are endless, right? You have to believe and feel that so deeply that you start to command the change in your life. All right. Any questions? Let's say good morning to people that are showing up here. I got to scroll back and then we'll go on to talk about the North Node conjunct Neptune today. Good morning to Terry. Love seeing you out there listening from work. Julie, good morning to you. Christine Buckingham, hello. Joan Durchie, happy Friday. It's very cold at the beach, 32 degrees. It's 24 here where my husband is. The car was reading 19 degrees. Oh, I don't know if that's right or not, but geez, that is so cold, especially for here. Asa, good morning to you. TD Hawk says, good morning. All power and internet are still intermittent from the ice storm and wind, so I'm just listening today. Much love. It's good to have you with us, though. And Julie says, sending blessings your way, TD Hawk. I love it. Tom, good morning to you. It says, in Lakesh, Astro Design Fam, aloha. Letter D only works in caps now. Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Must be stuck. Maybe there's something underneath the key. Karen's Corner, good morning. Gate 4 lights up that channel, but that is my one head Ajna channel. I still don't understand how to integrate human design. So thanks. You're a mental projector. Okay, so the 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 pr- the good news, right? The good news is that last week you've had the opportunity, hopefully, to look at the stories that you tell yourself, right? In the mental field, what are the ideas? What are the conditions? What are the I can'ts? What are the I wants? You had that opportunity to hopefully look at all of that. And this week then is your opportunity to have hopefully changed some of that thinking pattern so that you can take action. Because if you have a defined ajna, you have a very defined way of thinking, and it is caught up in certainty, right? That certainty. This is how it works. This is who I am. This is how I think. But the opportunity here is for you to get outside of that, break free of that, and propel yourself into new ways of thinking, Karen, so that you can do things in a different way. Asa says, life change, here I come. Absolutely. And Karen is in the midst of life changes as well. J-Lo, good morning. And Sonia, good morning. Hello from Goa, India. Absolutely beautiful message. Thank you. You are so welcome. Gayla, good to have you with us this morning. And now let's dive into the next part of this. Let me show you first what I am talking about on my ever present chart that I have. My printer, I must print 300 or more pages a month of information. Here we go. Right? This is the North Node conjunct Neptune. Now, this is what Pisces, the symbol, looks like. And the upside down horseshoe here is the North Node. By the way, this one up here is Saturn, but he's not really involved in this conjunction yet. He will be in a conjunction later in the April. And the next one down is Neptune. And you see they're both at, if my god dang camera would stop getting blurry, they're both at 28 degrees today. And that means they're in a conjunction. And a conjunction in astrology is all about the bringing together and blending of the energies of the two bodies that are involved. And sometimes it's more than two bodies, right? There could be three, sometimes more, coming together and blending energies. So, with this conjunction of the North Node and Neptune, we're combining the energies of the spiritual dimension, of the blurred lines, right? Of the things that we can't see clearly, with the Neptune or with the North Node's idea of destiny. And having moved into Pisces just on January 11th, um, talking to us about having a spiritual practice and seeing things from the point of view of the spiritual side of things, not just this planted on earth thing, but from the bigger point of view. So we're entering a period of time right now where, and this is about emotional turbulence in some respects, because this is also the energy of the gate 36 in your human design. So we have this emotional turbulence that is no longer something to fear. It's really all about our evolution. And those two are linked at the gate 36. So we're being asked to trust uncertainty. And that's difficult for people like you, let's say, Karen, who have, that ajna defined, because you broadcast certainty, but now everything is coming untethered, right? And that can be very difficult. It requires you to change your thinking. And that's like true for all of us, but especially if you're someone who has a defined ajna. And this is a collective spiritual awakening that we are moving through. And it's going to require emotional depth from us and also some resilience. And we'll talk more about that here in a moment. So, as I said at the beginning of the broadcast this morning, um, I really was thinking about this morning before I even got out of bed. This idea of the North Node and having moved out of Aries and into Pisces because it goes backwards, and Neptune getting ready to move forward out of Pisces and into Aries. So it's like they're trading places, right? There's that movie, Trading Places. And yet I almost see, because the North Node holds our destiny, our collective consciousness in its evolutionary state, um, that it was seeding something to Neptune before Neptune moves off into Aries. I can't help but see that as this thing. And the conjunction then brings this deep spiritual imprint, kind of marking a moment where the collective destiny, the North Node, aligns with Neptune's dissolution of boundaries. That's what Neptune's good for, inviting us to dream and to heal and to surrender before a major energetic shift occurs. Did you get that part? Surrender, heal, dream, right before the energetic shift occurs. And The nodes move backwards. So again, as the nodes begin to cross different planets in its path through the sign of Pisces, it deposits little seeds of energy, the lessons it picked up in the sign of Aries, right? And so let's look at that a little bit deeper. So the recent journey of the nodes across the Aries and Libra axis, and specifically North Node moving through the sign of Aries, pushed us collectively toward um, balancing self-assertion and collaboration, right? That Aries is a sign of independence, but independence isn't what we're really after. It's really more about interdependence, right? We're all interdependent on one another. The earth is interdependent with us, and we also with the earth. So we're being pushed toward, on one hand, independent action and courage and initiation, while the South Node, who's in the opposite at that time in Libra, is encouraging releasing codependency and people pleasing tendencies. So bringing this balance, right? And as the North Node re enters Pisces, it's almost like it's revisiting the spiritual depths before Neptune moves off into Aries. So again, like you get the feeling it's depositing some kind of information to Neptune to take with him on his journey into the sign of Aries. And this suggests that what we're currently initiating in our lives collectively, but also individually, because this is impacting you individually as well, is actually laying the groundwork for Neptune's shift into Aries, first coming up on March 30th this year, and then in 2026, it'll be back into that sign for the next 14 years. So it's a long-term move that Neptune will make. The node moved through that area in about 18 months. But this is, you can almost see this as a spiritual initiation for everybody. We've all been spiritually initiated. And it is impacting us in a way to have courage in a vision, right? A courageous vision. And the North Node asks us to surrender and trust in divine timing, dissolving what no longer serves us. We have to let go. And Neptune follows behind, amplifying this process of dissolution because that's what he does best, and also bringing intuition with it, right? That's another key code of Neptune. And as soon as he enters Aries, he'll bring a new pioneering vision to that spiritual dimension, right? And what we're being called, I suppose you could say, to release or to explore spiritually in 2025 will kind of fuel the bold initiating energies of Neptune in Aries as we go forward. So, what is it that you're willing to pioneer yourself into? And you could look at this too as like the fire of awakening. And some of us are already awakened in some respects, right? You're out here and you're looking at astrological or spiritual energy, healing energy, alternative medicines, alternative, lifestyles, etc. So some people are already awakened in some respects. But this is the fire of spiritual awakening, particularly as we get into 2026, because this year, 2025, is when all of these changes begin to take place, which means that we are just kind of in the initiatory uh, part of this whole cycle. So when Neptune enters Aries, after having been deposited new information from the North Node's transit through that sign, the spirituality moves from contemplation of Piscean type energies to action energies of Aries. It's almost like now you have to put your money where your mouth is. You have to put your words into actual action, right? And it is a little bit like warrior mystic energy, where faith and imagination no longer sit in the realm of the dream, but more about it being direct and tangible, accessible, to us in the world, maybe through grassroots movements, maybe through communities, that type of thing. So it's an important change that we're seeing with all of this. The North Node's prior Aries transit, which was from 2023 to 2025, was a preview of this, right? And it encouraged us to step into leadership. Don't forget, Chiron is also in Aries, and he's been healing, working with the healing energies of leadership, of independence, and new frontiers, and courage and boldness and exploration and impulsiveness. If we want to look, we could look into the negative sides too. Where have we been too impulsive? Where are too many things happening so fast that you can't keep track? And we see that in the USA, we see that right now. I don't know about other countries, but if you're noticing this too, where every day there's a half a dozen or more things being thrown at us, being changed or being upset or turned over. And it's kind of crazy. And yet it has a purpose. And that purpose is to really alter our malaise, if you will, our apathy, and to get us in action mode. So we have a new era of collective identity coming up here, you could say, where the Neptune North Node conjunction in Pisces now is like a whisper from the future. And it prepares us for the bold spiritual activism of Neptune in Aries. And as Neptune dissolves structures in Pisces, people may feel lost. You may feel lost. You might feel disillusioned. You might feel deeply spiritual. You might have gone very much into your internal self. But this is a necessary clearing before Aries lights up the torch for a new collective movement, which use your imagination as to what that might mean or might, point to where it is that we're going. This shift, by the way, could birth spiritual pioneers, visionaries, and leaders who take inspired action based on inner knowing, based on Aquarian ideals of humanity and compassion, and Piscean ideals that have already been a part of all of this empathy and caring and tolerance and acceptance. Even though that isn't what it looks like right now in the outer world, it is definitely coming to your neighborhood for sure. So, what intuitive insights or dreams or callings are surfacing for you right now? That's what you want to focus on because these may be the seeds for your own warrior journey as we move into Neptune and Aries March 30th. Um, how is your spiritual evolution or your spiritual connection evolving? How are you going? How are you upping your game, if you will, spiritually? Are you being called to take action rather than just trusting or just sitting back? And not everybody's going to be called to this in the same way, by the way, because all of you have a different chart and a different place that, for example, Pisces and Aries are sitting. For those of you who've had readings so far this year, you've heard me talk about the hot zone of your own particular chart. And that hot zone is Pisces, Aries, and by opposition, Virgo. So, in a reading, we're definitely picking up on what are those things? What is that part of your life that you're really being called to be a spiritual pioneer or to be a visionary or to be emerging as a leader? So, your fears also have to be dissolved during this period of time. And is it happening for you, right? Are you becoming more of the fierce warrior, and I don't mean fierce in a you know, physical sense, a fighting sense, but fierce as in, I'm following my values. I'm living my values. I dare to say what needs to be said. I dare to go where I need to go. I dare to step out there in a way that maybe I've not done before, right? Maybe I've been too much in fear. So, you know, are you actively becoming a part of the larger cosmic unfolding, or is your part to sit and hold space for that to happen? We don't want to be just passive observers if we can help it, because these are not going to be passive energies. You know, Pisces was more passive. Um, Aries, Neptune moving into Aries eventually in May, Saturn moving into Aries brings this bold energy to play, but it's also balanced, a counterbalance by the North Node moving through Pisces. So we have both the inner and the outer changes that are going to be a part of this experience for us. Now, I also just want to briefly touch on the fact that Saturn will also conjunct, or the North Node will conjunct Saturn. They will run into one another on April 21st. You might circle that day on your calendar. Although this energy right now, they're 10 degrees apart. I would say, with the weight of things that are happening on the planet now, yeah, they're already starting to blend their energies, right? It's like the North Node is just pulling this energy from Saturn. And of course, it adds this significant layer of structure and accountability to this whole process of change and transformation. And if the Neptune North Node conjunction is about spiritual vision and dissolving the old paradigms, then Saturn's conjunction to the North Node is the moment of reckoning, where it all falls apart, where those dreams must be given form, discipline, and structure, or risk falling into nothingness, right? So we're with Saturn and the North Node, when they come together, it's like bridging a spiritual vision, but with practical reality. That's what Saturn represents, that practical reality. And it's pulling us toward using our intuition, surrendering and trusting in our unseen, our maybe our spiritual guides, our intuition, our knowingness. But Saturn is a very different energy here, and it's one of boundaries and discipline and responsibility. So, in a way, the conjunction is going to be a counterbalance to the North Node conjunction to Neptune. And Neptune dissolves, Saturn builds. So the North Node asks, "What's next? What next?" And Saturn replies, "Only what's real." Right? Only what I can build, only what I can see, feel, touch, right? What I can build, stand on, and function from a new foundation. So, all of this is shaping our soon to be era, Aries era of Saturn and Neptune in Aries. And, your job now is the spiritual commitment before the fire begins, right? What is it that you're going to commit to? It's like a divine calling and an awakening that we're going through now with the North Node and Neptune coming together. But by April, when Saturn actually conjuncts the North Node, we're asked to get serious about this calling. What is it that you're going to do now? How are you going to express it and put it out there? And are you willing to put in the work to manifest your dreams into that tangible reality? Because that's what Saturn wants, is the work to do to get it into the real zone, right? Out of the dream zone and into the real zone. And likely this can be a test of faith and responsibility for all of us. You all have Aries somewhere in your chart, and that's where you need to look. Where is Aries? What is the house that Aries is in? And this is where your spiritual ideals meet pragmatism, practicality, right? Saturn does not allow for escapism as Neptune does. So those who've been avoiding, getting on their true path, you might find that you're in a karmic push toward accountability, being real in the spiritual way. Spiritual maturity will be a theme. And if Neptune has shown us the dream, Saturn asks, are you disciplined enough to bring it into life? Are you ready to build it? It reminds me of the movie, I think it was called The Field of Dreams, and one of the sayings in it was, "If you build it, they will come," right? That's kind of what this is about. If you build it, then you need to live it, right? You can't just build it in your mind, you have to build it in the real world. Now, then if you've built up your inner strength and you've done the intuitive work, then when Saturn and the North Node meet up in April, you will be ready to take that bold action and that next step, right? So it's not like this is all happening in a void. It's pushing us somewhere, right? So this could be a time of spiritual laws and regulations and leadership shifts where institutions and the people that are in a part as a part of those institutions are asked to align their actions with higher ideals, right? And in my head, it's all a jumble right now because, there's so many different things that are happening on any given day in that outer world. Individually, you may feel a calling, to step up, whether it's in, your spiritual practice, is it in your career, is it in your health, is it in your finances? Because wherever it is in your chart, right? Look where Pisces and Aries are. These are the places where you're being asked to step up. And if the Neptune-North node conjunction today plants the seeds, then the Saturn-North node conjunction in April ensures that they take root, but in solid ground. So we're being asked again, bring those dreams out of the dreamland and into the real, right? Into the real world. So the Saturn North node will really be the reality check. And that will be, before Saturn moves on into Aries later in the month, I think it's May 24th. Then, now we'll have two outer planets in the sign of Aries, right? It's a big deal. And there's this historical thing about this. There's, Saturn in Pisces cycles. If we just look at what Saturn brought to us different times it's been in Pisces, maybe we get kind of a clue as to what it is we're really being asked to build as we move forward. So Saturn most recently was in Pisces in 1994 through 1996. So put your thinking caps on, go back to that time. And what was happening was the internet boom. And it fundamentally altered how we perceive reality, how we communicate with one another, and connection, which is a very Neptunian sort of shift that was going on. Even though Neptune wasn't yet in Pisces, but Neptune is the ruler of the sign of Pisces, where Saturn was located. So we pick up those Neptune themes. It was the rise of spiritual and metaphysical movements, especially online. In the 90s, I opened up, or late, it was actually closer to 2000, I opened a metaphysical bookstore. I felt the calling to, to have that community space for the spiritual and for the metaphysical. It was also a dissolution time of traditional boundaries. The European Union was formed, and it led to greater globalization. And it also brought us some reality checks with the Rwandan genocide that occurred during that time, the Bosnian War, exposing deep humanitarian crises through those different countries, reminding us that unity, Pisces, must be backed by responsibility, Saturn. And then Saturn was again in the sign of Pisces in 1964 through 1967. That was the counterculture movement, and it exploded out into the world with hippies and psychedelics and the Eastern spirituality, as people sought to dissolve the boundaries and to expand consciousness. Right, that's very Neptune in Pisces, but it was Saturn in Pisces and energy. And there was the reality check yet. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act were legally attempted to dismantle segregation. For some of you that are younger out there, you might not remember a time when schools, for example, were segregated. And I don't remember the segregation. I was part of the integration, which meant that because I was white, I was bused to more of a black school to balance, right, the percentage of the African American and the white Caucasian population. So, like, I didn't get to go to school with all my friends from, my younger years. I went to a completely different school district. I had a great time. It afforded me lots of opportunities, but it was a part of this dismantling of the old system, right? And it's very clear that this was a big change, a big shift out there on the horizon. The Vietnam War also took place during this time, and it escalated, and it tested our global faith and leadership. And, I'm not saying good or bad, I'm just saying these were the things that were alive in our reality in the two previous times that Saturn was moving through Pisces. So then Saturn's conjunction to the North Node in Pisces will likely mirror these themes in some way, maybe not a one to one, but certainly mirroring them in some way. And what there might be is a major societal shift. There certainly was in the 60s. And the idea here would be where spiritual ideals clash with real world responsibilities. And it's the rise, hopefully, of global compassion and activism, but also a challenge. How do we ensure accountability? Right? How do we make sure that we do things in a responsible way? Now let's do the same with Neptune. Let's look at Neptune in Aries cycles. Now, Neptune moves much slower than Saturn. Saturn will move through a sign in 2.5 to 3 years. Neptune is going to take anywhere from 14 to 16 years to move through a sign because he's further out there. He has a 165-year cycle. And that means, if he's going at 0 Aries, the next time he's at 0 Aries would be 165 years later. So, 165 years ago takes us to the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865. The war began on the 12th, and on the 13th, Neptune moved of April, by the way, of 1861. The next day was when Neptune moved into Aries. It is a clear fight for ideals, breaking away from old systems, right? In that we were breaking away from the old slavery system, from the old system of even how, people were treated and the ideals of equality. It was the abolition of slavery in 1865. And there was also a very spiritual and scientific sort of awakening that was going on, bracketed within the same time period. By the way, I didn't give you the dates. 1861 to 1875 was when Neptune was last in Aries. Right. So these are themes. They're not going to be necessarily one on one kind of correlations, but similar, right? There are going to be similarities. So that awakening, the late 1800s, saw major advancements in occultism, in theosophy. Think Madame Blavatsky in 1875, Darwinian science, which was a push to redefine reality through our genetics and how we came to be who we are as humans in this world, and how all animals move through evolution. The women's rights movement began gaining momentum anyway at this time, both in Europe and in the US, leading to the suffrage movements, right? Here we are. We have the same theme, some women's rights coming back up. So the parallels of 2025, 2026, and beyond to these other times is a massive sort of ideological battle that is between the old world versus a new paradigm, and a spiritual revolution occurring that requires courage and leadership, not just faith, right? Not just the faith. There are the potentials for conflicts or rebellions where outdated power struggles or structures are crumbling, right? Falling to the ground, which brings a rising wave, maybe, of spiritual warriors and visionaries, people who are willing and can and will take direct action on their intuition as to what role they're here to play. So, Saturn and Pisces, now until April or May 24th, and then again will enter for good for 3 years in 2026. Conjunct the North Node in Pisces is about dissolving the old spiritual accountability and creating a new foundation. Neptune in Aries, new spiritual frontiers, action driven faith, and also collective rebirth, and looking back to look forward, right? It never hurts to look back and see where we've been, what were our mistakes, and then how do we correct that as we move forward. Each previous cycle of Saturn and Neptune brought us this deep restructuring of spiritual, cultural, and societal realities. So we're expecting that now, right? We're heading into a similar watershed moment. but now on a more global and interconnected scale because of the internet and the global nature of the world that we're in. So we're at a crossroads, right? This day is amazing, but this time is also amazing as we are looking at, well, what do we want to create as we go forward? What are you willing to commit to? What are we willing to commit to in terms of moving into and creating a bold new world? And how can we embody leadership in a new era? What does that mean? Is it authoritarian? Certainly seems that's a direction we seem to be going, but I guarantee you that isn't going to stand. So there will be a revolt against that type of authoritarianism, and we'll have to be called to our vision to stand up for what we believe in. Now, in the last, let me look and see how people are doing out here first. What did I miss here? Hello, Lewis. And uh, I am here. No way I'm leaving without you. And Asa, I love it. Luis Gomez, spiritual foundations become a reality. I love that. Yes. Julie has Aries on her sixth house, work, service, health, your environment, your well being. What are you detoxing from? And what are you willing to, bring in that's of a healthy kind of lifestyle? Karen, whole sign, fourth house Aries, and I need to uproot, definitely creating a new foundation, right? Looking at the traditions that you've upheld and w- taking a good, look at that. And is it something you want to take forward with you? Having Aries on the fourth house, is disruptive in terms of the family. And maybe you felt sort of like a black sheep in your own family. And maybe you are just kind of embracing and wrapping yourself into the wonder and awe of you during this period of time. I would say that's a great way for you to move forward and uproot. Jada, good morning to you. Aries in my 12th house, tropical. So the 12th house is a house of, sort of the inner you, right? The introspective you. And, there can be fear in that 12th house, and there can be blocks and limitations, and you're going to be asked to elevate, right? This is the divine you. The 12th house really is the divine you. And the divine you is untethered, right? It doesn't have to have fear and blocks and limitations. It's virtually unlimited. But we cover our divine self up with beliefs and with every event or challenge that comes to us in our daily lives. We, cover up that divinity. So you're maybe excavating, you know, bringing out more of your divinity. Good morning, Natasha. She said, I had a very deep dream last night about sharing with others about releasing the old hurt story to move into the new. I love that. That is absolutely a call from your soul to move into this Aries part. So I think you have a Cancer rising. So this is your 10th house career that we're talking about for you, Natasha. Same as me. Um, Karen, it's so fascinating to be conscious of living through such times of change through the mirror of history. Indeed. And, think about how much more consciousness is available to us at this point in our evolution, as opposed to where we would have been as people, as, individuals back in those other days, right? We have been evolving, whether it kind of looked like we were not, we have been. And so you're in a better position today as a soul on the planet to work through any of the challenges that come up during this period of time. And Lewis, we are interwoven into a spiritual revolution knocking on our door. Absolutely. Detoxing from the matrix. I love that. Tara Mesner, eighth house Aries. Eek! Well, the eighth house is a house of transformation. And depending on what other planets that you might have there, Tara, this could be a very powerful time for you of transforming your life, both in terms of how are you merging yourself into the world in a new way, but how is that impacting your relationships, your identity of yourself? It's a big change for you, likely. We'd have to look at the planets that you might have there that might be impacted by this change. Asa, fifth house, get your creativity on, girl. I don't know how many more ways I can tell you this. It's true. Fifth house, Aries, get your game on, get moving. Let go of all that kakamaka in your mind and be creative. J-Lo, 10th house, 11th house, it is going to be all about work, but also taking it out into the social world, your friends, your networks, sharing with others. You're really good at that. And she's letting you know we got work. I love it. All right, so let's look at the human design potential of this particular time because it's also quite interesting when you look at the fact that the solar plexus center of your human design is shifting slowly, right, at first, but also shifting. It's slated for 2027, but this is 2025. That's 2 years. We're in this process, right? So you might think of the things that are happening now, set the stage for that human design evolution that comes in 2027. And there's a lot more to that. We could do an entire show, maybe an entire course on just that. Um, But as we look at the gate 36 is a place of turbulence. Sometimes it's called crisis, even, right? The gate of crisis. In the lower expression of the gene keys, this is called crisis or turbulence, I believe he calls it. And yet it's deeply emotional. It's deeply experiential, right? This is where we have the experience of emotional challenges, perhaps. And it represents the wave of change that arises from emotional turbulence, right? Think of all the emotional things that are happening just in this country right now, not even, other countries. So if that emotional turbulence is happening elsewhere, we have what is called a global wave of emotional turbulence that is happening. And it brings up the deep growth that we could experience and share with others as we move through it. So in traditional human design, this is crisis. And it brings that intentional or intense, not intentional, intense emotional ups and downs. And it requires a journey through discomfort in order to gain wisdom. Now, Karen renamed these gates, and in quantum human design, it's called the gate of exploration. So, in this updated framework, the energy is less about reacting to crises and more about stepping into new experiences with curiosity and trust, right? Not the reactive, knee jerks, but I wonder what this could bring. I wonder what's happening here. I wonder how we could, move forward with this. So the gate 36 actually teaches us to embrace change, to embrace it and to ride the emotional wave with it, whatever that is for you. It could be, some people are on an emotional high as they love seeing what's going on in that outer world. And others are feeling that, oh my God, this whole world sucks right now. And yet we are all able or meant to find meaning in the uncertainty that the times are showing us right now. Now, Neptune and North Node are going to conjunct at this gate 36 in the line 6. And there's a distinguishing difference here because each of those lines express just a little bit differently, right? There are 6 lines, 6 lines in human design. So 6 different ways that the gate 36 could show up. And the 36 sixth line is really about a collective spiritual initiation. Line 6 carries the role of the teacher and the visionary, the role model energy, and it brings big picture understanding and endurance to the full spectrum of the experiences that we are having right now. So Neptune at 36.6 dissolves old emotional fears, asking us to trust the unknown. Tough, tough, tough. We like to know, don't we? And the North Node at 36.6 points to a collective destiny of deep emotional transformation, surrender, and expansion. So we have some very powerful energies showing up in this 36. Now, key themes from the outer world. What might we see in the world with this conjunction in that gate? Global initiation through chaos. And Neptune amplifies the spiritual lesson here and in the crisis and asks us to move from fear to trust, right? So that's one part of this. It is also a call for each of us to have emotional mastery. We're moving to a time where in the shadow of this gate, it's emotional overwhelm or being undone by the emotional energy. And the gift is learning to navigate these changes easily, gracefully, right? With purpose, deliberately. And it's also a time of exploring new beginnings, new ways of being. The quantum perspective, especially here, and the quantum was the gate of uh, uh, expansion, no, exploration. The quantum perspective really encourages us to be curious rather than fearful in these uncertain times. And of course, then spiritual awakening comes on the heel of that as we have lived experiences that we can, as we go into the unknown, gather and share with others as we go along. So the world is being pushed into exploration mode. You'll see that also because of the Aries energy being explorational. And we're entering this period where this emotional turbulence is no longer something to fear. It's really a part of our evolution, going with the flow, flowing with the go. We're being asked to trust uncertainty. Yeah. And view change as the adventure it is or it could be. And this is a collective spiritual awakening, and it will require emotional depth and resilience, right? Humans are resilient. Now, when the Saturn North Node conjunction happens, it will also be in gate 36, but it will be in the line 5. And the line 5 is about grounding the lessons and finding the solutions, right? Looking for the way to solve the problem. And it's about creating stability and having crucial leadership through crisis. And Saturn at gate 36.5 asks us to take responsibility for our own emotions rather than be overwhelmed by them. It's very similar, right? The North Node at 36.5 says that emotional maturity and resilience uh, are the way forward, right? We have to have those things. So I would expect leadership in emotional chaos during these times. We'll see leaders emerge who can bring stability and certainly bringing that certainty amid bringing the stability amid uncertainty. Um, Maybe a reality check in our spiritual growth. Are we truly walking our spiritual path, or are we just talking about it, right? Walking your talk. And there may be some structures, new structures put into place for navigating change because Saturn demands practical solutions, not just emotional reactivity here. So Saturn is definitely a different character as he sits at the gate 36. And the emotional revolution gets real. Neptune inspired the vision, but Saturn makes us implement it, right? So you have to walk the talk. And the vision is only as powerful as the structures we create to hold it. And this is a call for us to step up and be responsible or to step up into responsible emotional leadership. It's going to take time. We're not there. Today is not the day, but we will begin this process as we see things out there in the outer world maybe that we don't resonate with, that we don't want in our world as we go forward, which is a call for each one of us to step up and take whatever role it is that we're meant to do in the leadership moving forward, right? And true wisdom comes from having lived through the storm and knowing how to guide others, right? We learn sometimes in the most um, difficult times, we learn the most, right? Now, the bigger picture. We're moving from crisis to pioneering in that new era that we're moving to. And there's an emotional awakening happening here. Realizing that uncertainty is just a part of life and it's not something we have to react to. Every time something changes, we don't have to dissolve into fear or anger or tears, right? Or upset. The Saturn North Node conjunction is really about grounding that awakening into the bigger dynamic. And both of the transits, Neptune conjunct North Node, Saturn conjunct North Node at the gate 36, set the stage for Neptune and Saturn's trip through Aries, where spirituality truly becomes action oriented and pioneering and visionary and maybe sometimes impulsive and sometimes filled with anger, maybe even, crisis through conflict or wars or, things that happen We have to be able and willing to go with the flow through all of that. All right. Wow, that was a lot this morning. How's everybody feeling about all of this? Be mindful to a new change of spiritual exploration. That's from Lewis. I love that. JLo, Janet, I'm curious. What if our ajna and head is defined on our solar return chart? Will you say it is something we can tap into for the year? Yes, absolutely. Every year on your birthday, new things come together. The planets have moved both in your astrology and also in your human design, and it brings possibility, for expression in new ways. But it doesn't overwrite your program, so to speak, right? This is just new energy that is possible. And it's temporary, right? It's temporary, it's activated at the solar return, but then we'll move on, right? So it's adding something to the soup, but not taking away from the soup, if you will. Okay. As we rise in compassion to witness the grace of God overcoming our reality, that's an interesting thing to say too, because I feel like there is a lot of that at our fingertips. And Karen, since this lights that channel for me, both conjunctions, I must have to really look at this emotional control. And I would even suggest you look at it differently, not so much emotional control as emotional response. How do I want to respond in this situation or to this challenge, to this event, as opposed to reaction, which comes more often from fear or from a place of unconsciousness? So you're bringing more consciousness to that energy. All right. Well, let's draw a card. I feel like we might need dragons, which means I've got to go find them because they're over here somewhere. And a reason I'm thinking dragons is because dragons are so spiritual. And where did my dragons go? Ah, there you are. Dragons. Because this is the time when we need the fire that the dragon can afford us, and also when we need that's the one, when we need the wisdom of how to use that fire to its best. And we have a white gold dragon from Lyra. It connects you to the highest Christ light. Develop your causal chakra, bathe in ninth dimensional Christ light. This is a beautiful card, right? She just shines. And Lyra being a constellation where a very powerful galactic war destroyed some of the civilizations in the Lyran system. And some of them went out to the Pleiades, some of them came here to Earth. Almost everybody whose galactic astrology chart I've looked at has some kind of connection to Lyra, and it's interesting to watch that happen. And this is a ninth dimensional dragon, so I got to get over here, and we have a white gold dragon from Lyra, page 98. Okay, here we go. So develop your causal chakra, bathe in ninth dimensional Christ light. Lyra is the cross-shaped 12th dimensional stargate through which Archangel Christiel and the unicorns enter our universe. The light from Lyra pours down through the moon, allowing scintillating seventh dimensional dragons to step through into the vibration of Earth. These white gold dragons embody the highest frequency of the Christ light available to everyone on this planet. They work closely with Archangel Christiel, who is in charge of the development of the causal chakra of humanity. This is particularly important now as our causal chakra is our connection to the higher dimensions of spirit, the dragons, the angels, the unicorns, and masters. The white gold dragons from Lyra help to clear and develop our causal chakra and illuminate our highest possible ascension path. These white gold dragons are attracted to you now because you already carry Christ light in your aura. Ask one to take you to the ninth dimensional pool of Christ energy held in Lacume. Visualize yourself in the pool, which shimmers and swirls with pure love and light. Feel yourself absorbing all you are ready to receive. When you return, continue to feel the white gold light in your aura and practice pure, unconditional love in your daily life. Your aura will radiate the incredibly high frequency of white gold, and the white gold dragon from Lyra will support you by continuing to pour Christ light into you. Take time to find a quiet, still place where you can listen to its wisdom and its guidance. I think that is a lovely card. All right. That's it for me today, guys. I will be with you on Monday. Have a great weekend. See you then. Bye for now.